what's up guys? Got Dave here, and what do you think is worse? Having your chain too tight or having your chain too loose? Because everyone seems to be worried about having a loose chain, you know, like, oh, make sure it's not loose, you know, make sure you tighten that thing up, you know, don't want too much slack in it and this and that. And honestly, the only thing that I notice when my chain is loose, and actually like how I know that it is loose, is when I'm on it versus when I'm off it. I'll actually feel that clunk, you know, like where it's taking up the slack in the chain. Like usually, like if I'm off it like that and then I get back on it, it won't be smooth. It'll be all like I'll feel it kind of hit, and then I know that there's like some slack in the chain. Not like you can't feel it too much on the Grom, but I could definitely feel it like on the bigger bikes, and especially on the Beta, because it doesn't have a cush drive, because the rear sprocket is directly mounted to the hub with no cushioning. So I could definitely feel on that bike when the chain gets loose. I hear a lot of people, they'll be like, you know, make sure that you adjust your chain, you know, like check it all the time. You don't want it to get loose. And honestly, I have actually seen the case where a lot of times where someone will adjust their chain, you know, and they'll be like, yeah, I just finished servicing my bike or whatever, you know, I lubed the chain and I adjusted the chain and this and that, and like I'll start looking at it and the chain is way too tight, dude. It's like too tight. Like if you sit on the seat and actually like compress the suspension, usually chains get tighter when the suspension compresses. So if you hit a bump and you go ugh, and it compresses the suspension and the chain gets tight all of a sudden, and it jerks on that shaft every single time you hit a bump when you're riding the bike, I think that's very bad, and I think that it's gonna wear that out. And if the chain is too tight and you hit a bump and it pulls it really tight, it can actually break the chain, and which is really bad because then you're stranded. But it can also be really bad and cost you a lot of money, because when the chain breaks and it comes through, like when it comes through that spot where the front sprocket is, the chain will like whip. And a lot of bikes even have a metal piece in there to keep it from hurting anything, because when the chain whips like that, it can actually break the engine case. Like I've heard of it happening, and that's what that metal piece is in there for. If I had the choice, like, would I rather ride around with my chain being too loose or too tight? I would way rather have it be too loose. And honestly, in my opinion, I don't think it really hurts anything having the chain being loose. I don't think that really damages anything or wears anything out or hurts anything or anything like that. But if you have the chain too tight, every time you hit a bump and you go ugh on the suspension, and it makes that chain get tight, it pulls on the shaft like coming out of your transmission. If it's pulling on that all the time and it's wearing on that side of the bearing or the bushing or whatever it's got, eventually it's going to start leaking the oil out of there. It's going to wear that seal out and it's going to start leaking oil out of there, and you don't want that. And so honestly, of the two, I would way rather have a loose chain rather than a tight chain. Really bad to have a tight chain. That's my opinion. So if you guys think differently, definitely leave me an opinion, leave me a comment, you know, like let me know what, you know, what I got wrong on this. Leave me a comment, let me know, and I will talk to you in the next video. Peace.